Hello and welcome to the Veneto FM Podcast. So, it's about time to make a new episode, and to be honest, I'm really glad that I've noticed on my YouTube now as a creator, I'm looking at my analytics, and there's actually now people listening. And actually, that's probably been true for a while, but I'm just really blessed and happy that I kinda always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and now it's finally true that I'm a real entrepreneur because I have this business now. So I'm really excited to start working on this podcast since I've got a little bit of an audience going right now. Like, I think there's a few people who actually listen when I make content, so I'm just really glad and blessed about that. So that's really the good news. Good news about it that I really am motivated now to make this podcast because there's people listening. So thanks a lot for everybody who has been tuning in lately. Huge shout out. I really, if it not were for you, I probably would not be making this episode. Probably would not be making this podcast right now if not for you guys listening out there. So again, thanks for tuning in. Huge shout out to everybody who has been listening, and thank you from my heart to yours. So this is the Veneto FM podcast, and here we talk about philosophy, spirituality, and religion, and other topics that I come up with. Just religion, spirituality, and music perhaps, and all kinds of stuff that I'm interested in, and probably at some point I would love to have some guests over here, or maybe I just am going to do it solo. Probably I'm going to do both, so I'm going to do guests and also because I really would love to be a guest on some shows. So probably the best way to be a guest on a show is to have guests on my show as well. So yeah. So I'm not the biggest podcaster out there. I'm definitely not Joe Rogan, but that's fine because this is what the game is all about. It's all about like creating your content and not worrying too much about if I've got a million subscribers or not. Maybe that day will come and maybe not. Either way, I'm really glad and really blessed that I've got some listeners going on, so thank you again. So I wanted to talk about on aposol.com, which is my paid newsletter, paid writing project. So I wanted to talk about like lessons from solitude, but I will just rather talk about it here. I really didn't get in the mood to write, so rather just talking instead. So lessons from solitude, cause there's this guy that I talk about in my blog and my Instagram, and I also made an episode about him called Richard Rudd, who is like a art mentor of mine. I really do consider him a mentor of mine, albeit although only from the internet. I've never met him in person, only met him online and bought his courses and stuff like that. So I wanted to say something about him, but I kind of forgot in midst of my sentence. So, yeah, solitude. I was going to talk about the lessons from solitude, and I really got this idea of solitude from Richard. He has this thing on his website, thegenekeys.com, which is that that hologenetic profile. So basically an astrological prediction for your life, which is, I would say, pretty rad and pretty awesome. So in that profile, there's this thing called competence, and basically the lesson was that I reached my competence through solitude from reading the profile. That's the idea I got. So I decided to give it an earnest shot and give it a try, and needless to say, I spent quite a bit of time just by myself, just working on my business, like Richard told me to, and the results were really quite amazing, and I'm really, let's say the results are that now there's a few people listening to my stuff, so that's really the thing that Richard probably always wanted for me, to have also listeners of my own, because he has a lot of fans. So yeah, thank you Richard for that, and be sure to check out the Gene Keys and buy his book, The Gene Keys. It's really important for all artistic people out there. Really a must read of a book, I would say. Maybe physical, I really like audiobooks myself, because they have the reader, but I tend to buy both, so I buy physical copies and of my favorite books, and then I also buy the audio copy. I have read quite a few books in my life, like physical, but even more than that, I've listened to audiobooks because they just are so practical and you get them instantly, and to be honest, they are a little bit cheaper also due to the no print cost. So yeah, so the lesson from solitude for me was to develop my relationship with myself. And I guess my relationship with myself, that is really something new to me. So I started to kind of talk with myself when I was alone in a big way, and I started to really come up with this process of creativity, of creating things, designs, all kinds of all kinds of things. I created some of my own clothing with a printing company, and I've made some paintings, I mean digital prints, digital canvas prints, and made photos and post a lot to Instagram, and creativity like that. That's what I mean. Hmm. So I wanted to share in my blog earlier these experiences of mine. Uh, these experiences of mine about like uh, how do I say it? Solitude, and like really epic experiences that nobody else got to experience but me by myself. And that is really the paradox of solitude, that you can realize some really epic stuff, but then again, you are alone. So then the question becomes, how do I share this with others through my stories? Like, how do I explain them in a story? And I really haven't gotten around that yet. I have been trying to, I have been trying to, like, how do I say it? Really come up with these stories about what happened, and I really haven't done that yet. So I will give it a shot right now, but probably I cannot say everything in this one episode. Even if I do this 2 hours long, then I really cannot say it all. But it's like I started to read some poetry, and when you're alone, you're kinda, I guess, you're just alone with everything. So I really got into this meditative mind space, and meditative mind space, and that poetry really touched me. Like Richard's work, it touched me so deep that I actually cried. So that's the level of, that's like the magnitude of the experience I had, is that it made me tear up just a few years ago when I was alone in my house, and I experienced something like heaven, Like literally I was in heaven. So it was a really beautiful experience, and I'm really grateful to Richard for letting me know about solitude in that way, about being alone, and the beauty of it, and also the melancholy of it, because want someone to, you would really like someone to also know what happened. But I'm left with only telling stories about it. Nobody else got to see it firsthand, really. And to be honest, all that solitude thing, it got started with some hardship that I went through in life. Like I said, I've been in the mental hospital in the psych ward now for quite a while, and that is related, but it's not the whole story. Whole story, it's not. So yeah, where should I start? It's such a long story that I should probably write it into a book, and I will definitely give that a try, but I will explain as much as possible right here on this podcast right now. So, for example, I went to walks in nature, and whoever do like these walks in nature just by yourself and perhaps waking up early in the morning. Last night I woke up at 5 in the morning. I've been sleeping really late, so I wanted to start uh, going to sleep earlier. So I went to sleep earlier, and I actually woke up at 5. So that was really awesome. So yeah, for example, I had this one experience of like the seasons changing, and I was all by myself, and all I did was just observe nature and be really meditative and change with the seasons. And as the winter came, I didn't put any lights on, so I stayed with no electrical lights, and that really put me in a very interesting mood, I would say. So how do I explain it? Hmm. There's just too much. There is just so much to say that it's hard to know where to start. But I'm trying my best to communicate everything that was there. Because I've been into spirituality for quite a while, and I've been kind of walking the spiritual path, doing meditation, doing yoga, and some experiences with psychedelics also. Actually, quite a bit of experience with psychedelics. I did psilocybin for the first time when I was 16 years old, and yeah, so hmm, so how can I explain it? It's really tough obstacle I'm having to start, but I will explain this one experience I had when I was walking, and some kids, some younger kids took really notice of me, and they started to take these photos of me, and I was like, what the hell, that never happened to me before. So that's just one thing, and nobody was there to experience it. Not my mom, not my dad, not my friends, no one. So I guess that's like one experience that I had. And also when the seasons change and fall comes in Finland, it's actually one of my favorite seasons these days. Fall, because it's getting cold and you get to stay inside all the time working on your projects, and you don't have to be tanned or anything. You don't have to go to the beach. Although I like the beach, but I really like to stay inside these days and work on my stuff, because it's just the most exciting thing for me is to keep creating more and really do this like create online creation thing and keep writing and keep making these podcasts and keep making music and all kinds of stuff like that. So, hmm, so one experience was that when the fall was coming and it started to get dark and I didn't put any electrical lights on, and that really that was really interesting. And that's this concept that I heard that when you start doing something at first it's kind of difficult, and to be honest making this podcast and keeping talking all the time it's pretty difficult because I'm really used to like working on my art not by talking. Like I'm just I haven't created this podcast a lot before. So creating music, you don't talk when I create music. I create like instrumental music, so I don't talk. So I'm getting a little bit of a sore throat even just talking this much. But that's the thing I heard about creation, that when you truly get started with it, then you kinda, I guess, when you truly get started with it, then uh, how do I say it? You don't want to stop. So I believe that's the same with talking, because I used to be quite a talker when I was younger. I used to talk a lot, and that's the thing about solitude and being alone, that you don't speak much when you're by yourself, because that would be talking with yourself. And I do that a little bit, but not out loud, just in my mind, and maybe some whispers here and there, just a little bit of self-talk. If I need to remember something, I kind of talk it out loud sometimes, no matter how weird that might be. But I'm really excited about this idea that if you start doing something, then you want to keep doing it. And I will return to that topic later of what my experience with solitude was like. But one of the things was like this silence and just being with yourself. And when you're really excited by yourself, I think that's a profound thing. Because then when you are in company, you bring that excitement to the people around you. Because you have it when you are alone. So you have it when you are in company as well. And it really makes me feel really good about myself, because to be honest there's a lot of talk online about being this high value person that's interesting, and being an interesting person, being a high value person, being interesting, and that is really what some people say that we all should be, that we should be interesting. And to be honest, feeling interesting, it's a pretty nice feeling, that hey, I'm interesting. That's a really nice feeling to have just by being alone and being excited. Then you get excited when you're alone, you get excited in a company. So that's the really profound thing, because I really think that excitement is the most profound human feeling there is. I know some people think curiosity is, and curiosity and excitement are really close to each other, I think. And to be honest, excitement and like the Mars, like the mission by NASA on Mars, right? It's called Curiosity, the vehicle, because curiosity is what led them probably to send a robot to Mars. That it's actually pretty astounding that it works still after landing on a planet very far away. So that's some pretty nice mathematics and physics right there. Maybe some chemistry as well. So getting excited by yourself when you're alone, I think that is a profound, and I think that's one of my biggest spiritual achievements in my lifetime thus far. In this lifetime anyway, that that mm, that getting excited alone on working on something, it's really profound to me that a person can feel excited when he's by himself. Because when you're all by yourself and you've got all this time in your hands, then it can be easy to feel kind of melancholic. And when you're alone, it can be easy to struggle It can be hard to be by yourself for a long period of time. It can be really difficult. Like, you feel lonely, right? So then the feeling of excitement, that's where the profundity comes in, because it's not just feeling lonely all the time. There's a deepness to being alone, and it really made me interested in becoming a good storyteller, because a lot of fun things have happened to me, and I just want to share them with others. And I think this podcast will be my main medium to do that. So again, thanks for listening. So if you were not listening, then I would probably just nobody would hear these stories of mine, and that would be just a shame. So for example, I have traveled solo also in my life. I went to Spain with my friends, and then I went to Portugal by myself. And when you're by yourself in a new city, I met some of my great friends these days, Holger and Kaue, a guy from Germany and a guy from Brazil, and also other people. But those are the guys I have kept in touch with sometimes, and we are friends, and yeah. So, cause when you're alone, then if you achieve something, there's nobody to witness it but you. So you develop this, like Richard told me, that you develop kind of this friendship with yourself, and also a relationship with yourself, which is like an ecstatic thing. He talked about this in his talk, The Ecstatics, about Rainer Maria Rilke, who was also a loner. Like Richard is also a loner, and I'm kind of a loner also. So he talked about this in his talk about Rainer Maria Rilke, who was one of the best poets of all time, I guess. At least a very great one, if not the best. Very, very good poet, a mystical poet who wrote in German, I think, and his works have been translated to English, and apparently they are very beautiful. And another thing I did when I was alone, I listened to probably thousands of hours of music. So I listened to all these new albums, and I saved them all to my collections so I can later buy them and DJ with them, because I'm a producer, so I'm also a DJ. So would be pretty epic to show other people at some point if we hang out, just like I used to do as a kid, hang out with friends. So hanging out with friends and showing them all this good music with some proper speakers and DJing with friends. So you really start to appreciate it when you are in company, when you spend a lot of time alone. Then when you are with friends, then you are really present with your friends, and you are just enjoying every moment of it. And even this podcast, because I remember when I was just starting out creating the first episodes of it. This is episode 4, so I'm getting the hang of it now. Because when I got started, I was having a hard time speaking for 10 minutes straight, and now I'm at 24 minutes mark on this podcast, and I don't feel like stopping yet. So that's a nice sign of nice sign of progress being made. Because podcast, it's about doing this monologue kind of talk. There's no guest here, so it's just me talking with the microphone and the computer. So, and you guys be listening. So that's some of my experiences with being alone, and I think it's a really powerful thing to do. Because we are born into families, right? And we spend time with our families. And I don't consider myself a introvert that much. I am a little bit introverted also. I like to work on my own stuff and be alone and not socialize. But I feel like I get energized by socializing still. And I know some people are like, I know some of my friends, because I have a couple of friends who are really introverted. So they really they take it to another level, the being aloneness. And I guess we should talk about it at some point, just to ask them a few questions about it. Because you learn through being alone that it's really interesting. It's like this spiritual thing to be alone. I know the mm, Jesus went to his solitude also to pray and fast. And I know in Sufism they do it too. They do periods of aloneness in many spiritual traditions to connect with God. And I think for me it was definitely at some point a connection with God. Like I said, I cried because of work of Rick Hartz, because it was at times so brutal that just the kindness of Rick Hart really touched me, because I really went through also some darkness and pain and fear. Actually, darkness and pain, mostly it came down to fear when I think about it now. It was not so physically hurtful, but it was a lot of fear and a lot of angst and just hardship that I had to kind of go through and just feel it all. Like Christopher Wallace says, just being with what is like a spiritual thing to do, and really embracing the existence of what is. So being with what is a spiritual way to be. And for me, when you're going through hardship and you being with the hardship, that's when you really test your spiritual muscles in a way. So yeah, other than that, I've been working on music, and I guess I would like to say something to my audience. And I really don't know my audience at all. I know some creators probably know a little bit more about their audiences because they have been doing it for a longer period of time. So they might have, for example, Leo Gura from actualized.org. He has his own forum, and I have also a Discord server, which probably the link isn't up because it went into some kind of glitch. I'm not sure if anyone would have joined, but if you want to, then I will definitely leave a link for my Discord server in a future episode. I really don't know where the link is right now, but I will link that at some point. So if someone is interested, if you want to introduce yourself or just come hang out in Discord, that will be a possibility in the future. And if you want to really support my work further, then there's possibility to subscribe to aposol.com for 1 month at a time right now. So it's just 1 month at a time, because I would have to pay for the paywall to be a continual one. So that's also a possibility. You can subscribe to aposol.com, which is my personal brand project, which is a paid newsletter, and I really want to make it as epic as some of these paid publications are, like Forbes, for example. I think Forbes is like a paid publication also, and Christopher Wallis Tantra Illuminated, so I'm really looking at. And that's how I came up today with the idea of a life's work, because I really want to make my life's work also in writing. So I will be writing on aposol.com all kinds of cool stuff. All kinds of cool stuff there, and I really do want to make it a huge project that is well worth the money. So subscribe if you are interested. I will leave the link in the description. So 10 articles for free per month also. So, and I've been thinking of this, that if you cannot afford it, then I can come up with a coupon for you. If you cannot pay for it, if you are from a very bad financial situation, then I understand that you cannot pay. I will give you a discount. If you are like in a very bad place financially, I don't want to make it so you cannot buy it because it's too expensive at all. That's just not the way I think it should work. So if you're in a bad spot, then just email me or leave me a comment or just contact me. I mostly read all of my channels, so if you want a coupon, then that's cool as well. So it would be like probably 1 year or 6 month coupon for a readership, and then I would like to have a reapplication on it. So yeah, I think this is the longest episode thus far. I really wanna make it a marathon though, because I have this problem that I think that I'm gonna run out of things to say, so I should just stop the episode, or I cannot talk anymore, I need to stop. But then I realized that this is just such a brief moment. I only make this podcast once a week, although I've been inconsistent with it now. But I only make this podcast once a week, so why not make it a little bit longer while it's still active? Because then it's just uh, another week of no talking. So hey, let's make it a little bit longer this time. So I might want to aim for a 1 hour episode at minimum. So that was the story of solitude, and I think that if you haven't experienced aloneness, then you can do 1 week if you want to. Like, I'm not really saying to people what they should do, because I really don't know any better what you should do or what is the way that life works for you. I think we all should figure that out for ourselves. Although some advice can be good, but like then again, there's so many different people, so many different preferences that I don't know if there's a one size fits all solution. So it really depends on your personality if you want to do 1 week alone or not, or if being alone is your thing or not. I don't know if it's the thing for everybody. That's what Richard's work implies, that we all got our unique genetics and our unique dharma and life's work and stuff like that. So we should all have our own talents. We kinda all have our own gifts that and our own unique strengths. I really do believe that every person has their unique potential and strengths. So it's never the same for two people, and that is really the beauty of life in a way. Just going to take a little bit of a break, and then I will be back, and for you it's just oops, sorry about that. Uh, just taking a little bit of a break, going to grab some tea probably, and then I'll be back for you. It's just going to be just in 1 second, so see you in a bit. Okay, I'm back with the tea. So I got my teacup, so that's really awesome. So this podcast it got started off as Veneto FM Podcast episode 4, and it became Tea with Don Apo. So welcome, and I am drinking I'm drinking Nordquist Keisarin Morsian. The Emperor's Bride. So let's do a taste check on this tea. See how it tastes like. Too bad there's no video. If this podcast kicks off and people want to hear more, and I might buy a camera and a microphone. A microphone definitely. Right now I'm just making this on my laptop microphone. It's surprisingly good. It's surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. As I've been talking and writing in English, I've noticed that sometimes I don't spell everything correct. So working on that, also improving my grammar, if it matters. Yeah, the tea is tasting pretty amazing. It's tasting pretty good, and I really like that I got this like cool visual on my podcast. But perhaps at some point there should be a video camera and a microphone, and this could be like done in the studio. Right now I'm just using my laptop with my laptop microphone. So yeah. This podcast feels like I'm hanging out with friends and nobody else is saying anything. I'm the only one talking, so that is pretty funny. Reminds me of a story that my dad told me. Hi dad, if you are listening, I might send him a link to this just to shock him. So anyway, uh, so my dad, because when I was a teenager, I learned I learned as a teenager that actually alcohol is a very dangerous drug, and some drugs that are illegal, like cannabis, they are actually less harmful than alcohol. So I heard this and I was like, what? Like, what the hell? Alcohol is legal and everybody drinks it. So there's this like double standard that alcohol is legal and everyone drinks it, and then cannabis is a lot safer than alcohol and it's illegal. That's what I learned when I was 14. So I got really interested in using cannabis because I was like totally enlightened back then about how, because we were drinking, right? We just started to experiment with alcohol because that's what kids our age did. At least the gang that I was a part of, we were drinking alcohol, like long drinks, Longero and beer and stuff like that. So I learned that cannabis is actually less harmful, and I look at some statistics saying that nobody ever died of cannabis. Like literally zero people have died from it. And sugar kills a lot more people than cannabis does. Cannabis has killed zero people from overdose. So that really blew my mind. And I started to experiment with cannabis, and then I got caught. And then my dad told a story that he also tried weed sometime, and then he said that they also did amphetamine. They he did amphetamine with his friends. Like, my dad doesn't use any drugs, he doesn't use alcohol or anything, but as a young man, apparently he did use amphetamine at least once or twice. And I mean speed, like amphetamine speed, like that. stimulant drug that makes you wakeful and makes you really excited, wakeful, and wakes you up and makes you stay up all night. And apparently for him it was that it made him talk all the time. So he was talking like they had to like have a timer with friends that who gets to talk, because they all wanted to talk all the time. Like they were not listening, they were only talking on amphetamine when they were doing amphetamine. So they had a timer that everybody gets 5 minutes of talking, and when the timer rings, then the next person will start talking. So I thought that that was pretty hilarious. So that made me laugh, because they had these timers, like 5 minutes at a time of talking. And then when the timer rings, then the person has to shut up, because they did so much amphetamine that they couldn't stop talking. So yeah, that is a funny story related to my dad. So my dad, he's born in 52. 1952, so he was born in the same year as there was the Olympics in Helsinki. And he was born like he's like over 70 these days. And yeah, so he lived in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. So I guess he was a hippie or something. I don't know. I guess I should ask if you guys want to learn more about it. And my dad also, he did LSD. He confessed to me that he did LSD too, and he said that he was never so afraid in his life. Like he was absolutely terrified of his psychedelic experience. And I really had the same when I did DMT. I was so terrified. I was like, we were walking home and I was like, feeling at the same time like this crazy rebirth. Like I was just born again. Literally like I came out of the womb. And also feeling this like existential terror at the same time. Like rebirth but total terror at the same time. Back when I was like 17, 18, we did DMT with friends. And then I did 5-meal DMT because I heard about it online, and I went to Portugal and got some 5-meal DMT. So yeah, I got some 5-meal DMT in Portugal, and Portugal has decriminalized all drugs as far as I'm concerned. They are not a crime, or like they are like depenalized. Like you don't go to jail. I don't know if you get even like pikavoitto, like an instant victory, like a jackpot. I mean a ticket, like the police give you the money to pay, right? You have to pay the government if you get caught in an offense. So I'm not sure how it works in Portugal, but it's a lot more like liberal than in Finland. I think they decriminalized all drugs, and actually in Portugal it worked pretty well. They got rid of the heroin problem back in the day because they had a lot of heroin users, and these days they don't have as many heroin users anymore. Thanks to the nice rehab. Thanks to the great rehab and like I guess I'm not sure what they did, but somehow they really fixed the problem with heroin in Portugal. So I did 5 mil DMT, and then I'm not sure, like, I don't remember much from it. Like, I remember this experience of beauty. Like, I was just looking at the tree after the trip, and it was really beautiful. So 5 mil DMT, uh, that's not ayahuasca, because DMT is ayahuasca. And 5 mil DMT is not DMT. It's like a very different thing. And in Finland, there's no like 5 mil DMT. Probably only I don't know. Like maybe some people have it, but not that much. But 5 mil DMT, it's what they call an entheogen. An entheogen is like a God molecule. They call it the God molecule because it makes you connected with God when you take it. And yeah, that's what my experience was like. I was really, because when you're tripping, you sometimes you might go a little bit crazy at the same time. I think they make you a crazy genius, right? If you take psychedelics and if you do spirituality, like if you truly contemplate what love is and our resistance to it, that's what took me into doing some really mad shit that I don't normally do. Like when I realized that love is like, I went into this meditative contemplation that okay, so I resist love, okay? Like I've been listening to spiritual gurus for like many years now. So that's where I'm coming from, and I probably heard an idea about that we resist love, that we don't act as lovingly as we could, or something like that. Just heard an idea from YouTube, right? From someone. And then I got this idea, yeah, it's like you have to be super brave to in live in love. To live in love, you have to be like superhuman brave. And then I started to like kind of go crazy to this idea, and I even one of the situations that happened to me, I was in the shower in the dark in my house alone, and I was in the shower, and then I just like, I was really, I guess, struggling a little bit, as I was also enjoying myself. You know what I'm saying? Enjoying myself in the shower. Excuse me. So I was kind of, but anyway, I somehow ended up outside of my apartment. I ended up outside of my apartment with no clothes on, and I locked the door. So it happened to me what only happens in dreams usually, that you are outside naked and outside of your house. And of course I was naked, I was just out of the shower. I think I was just like, I don't know why I went into outside the house, and then I accidentally locked myself out. And it was already fall, winter was coming, it was pretty cold. I went into the elevator, went downstairs, and my neighbor, who did not treat me that well, saw me and called the police. So I ended up in the mental hospital just due to this. Just 3 weeks in the mental hospital. They kept me 3 weeks in there. In like no computer, like didn't know anybody there. Just alone in my room with no computer for 3 weeks. Like locked up. And I locked myself out of my house, and I ended up in outside my house, like I started to walk away from the house when she called the police, right? So I went outside and then I was like there and I just surrendered to be naked outside of my house. And like it was cold and I just went into this like fetal position and the police came and got me and I literally just learned what surrender is like when you're really in a really bad situation. Then you just okay, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. Cause it's like falling. It was the experience was like doing an ice dip. Like it was a literally similar experience to going into a frozen lake and staying there for like 5 minutes. You are just feeling the pain of the cold and you cannot really do anything and it's like it's really your experience. And yeah. And other types of contemplations I did and happened to me. It's not like when you start to contemplate something that you don't understand, like, and then you kind of break through a little bit on it, and you break through on it, and you just think of it like this: like you would have to go into a fist fight. It's literally a similar thing than having to protect yourself or going into a fist fight. Like somebody is threatening you. It's like a situation like that someone is threatening you. You cannot escape it, right? You have to face it head on and protect yourself. Like if someone is, just imagine the opponent is faster than you and you have no chance of escape. Then that's what life can be, really. That's what it can be, and I really do laugh about it now, but I went through some pretty big pain also when being alone. Being alone because I was in the mental hospital in Mikkeli and I moved to Vantaa to get away from that system because the doctor in Mikkeli is a sociopath basically. So I moved. I was like interested in living in a bigger city anyway, and I really like Vantaa. So, because it's near the capital Helsinki. But anyway, it's like, cause sometimes you in life you're in the situation of do or die. Like you got no other option than to win, like survive. Basically, I'm saying win, but I mean survive, cause that is winning. Survival is the ultimate victory, kind of. Like if it's you and your life and it's being threatened, like you're in a situation of will I live or not, then that's the time when you are in the metaphorical fist fight, but it's no longer a metaphor, it's real, and you have to protect your life and your very survival. So that's what I experienced firsthand also do the psychedelics and doing that darkness retreat and listening to spiritual teachings, and that's what life, that's like that's kind of the seriousness of life, right? Like you want to keep things, that's where the humor comes in, when you are really in touch with the seriousness. That's where the best jokes come in. Like the best jokes are about Stalin who died, right? The dictator of Russia. And when Putin will die, everybody will be gloriously laughing and having a good time. So yeah. So you would wish that no human has to go through struggle, but we all have to go through struggle, and that is not due to God. There's this teaching in the Quran about we don't know what God is like because we think that God makes us to kind of learn lessons and survive and teach us, and not. I don't think so. It can be really. I learned this from Christopher Wallis, Near Enemies of Truth. It can be like related to the truth, the thing that we need to learn, so we suffer, or everything is fair. The universe has a fair system. One of my friends, sorry man, one of my friends, he said that the universe is fair, and I do disagree with him. There's things like earthquakes, and they are not fair. They are just physics. There's bad luck, like your house can get struck. House can get struck by an earthquake, and that's, to me, that's just bad luck. That's not a revenge of God or God teaching us some lesson. It's not constructed by God at all that earthquake comes. So yeah. All right. So not meaning to scare you at all, just sharing my lessons learned from being alone. And because when you're alone and you struggle and you're going through a really hard time, then you are the only person who is there to help you out. So you learn to help yourself a lot. Like I learned to go to sleep early, and I learned to deal with my mind, and because I guess the best spiritual teachers like to point this out sometimes, that the mind is a trickster and the mind can create suffering. And a lot of physical ailments are apparently based in the mind. I'm not sure how that works, but I've heard stories of people like, for example, if you really panic just in your mind, you panic, you feel it physically. Literally when you are afraid, or literally you get spiked with stress hormones like cortisol, and your nails don't grow if you are in a state of stress. And that stress can only be a mind thing. It does not have to be based on a real threat. That's the thing. If it's just a threat that is imaginary, it has also a negative effect on you. If it's just a threat and there's no real violence, for example, you can still get traumatized by it. So sorry for making it so dark. It's not really that dark. I just have this weird sense of humor sometimes. Like in the end, you know, in the end, I'm fine, and I didn't have any problems. Kinda to begin with, I guess. But you should know, if you also have sometimes difficulties in life, that's what it is. It's what it is. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please leave me a like. Would be really awesome if you like this episode, so more people would probably listen to it. Be sure to subscribe, cause I really don't want to never see you again, or that you remain a non-subscriber. So please, for the 10th time, do hit that subscribe button. It's free. It costs nothing, but it's a really big gift for me if you subscribe. So be sure to subscribe if you listen to this far. Then I definitely want to see you on the next episode. So just subscribe and hit that like, and let me know what you think of this in the comments. And thanks for listening, and I will see you the next time. Bye bye.